Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Sorry to join some minutes late. I was in a crazy important meeting for us. So sorry that.
No worries. I feel like I go through that all the time. So if someone else does it, I can't pass.
Exactly. Give me 1 second, please. Yeah. Ready. I'm sorry, just to change the meeting multiple times, but the things in the company are going crazy for the good, amazing. But this is difficult to control the agenda and customer calls and all this stuff.
Oh, I can totally imagine that's always on, right?
Yeah. But no, now we are here. Cool.
Indeed. So tell me a little bit about Onum and what you guys are up to, and then let's turn it into a podcast.
Perfect. So I used to say that Onum is kind of a consequence of my time at Devo. So I found Devo in 2011 with my friends for 12 years. We have 6 people. I led the company in 3 years ago with 700 people, 2 billion valuation. And Devo is an analytic platform. So in this time there, we really understand the challenge that the customer have to send data to external platforms, analytics, CM, or external storage. They cannot control what they send or what's the value. And if every piece of data that you are sending to external place don't have the same value, why you pay everything at the same price? Just doesn't make sense. So point number 1. Point number 2 is that there's zero control. So if you ask today to every single Devo, Splunk, Elastic customer, hey, what data you sent to us yesterday? You know what's the answer? I don't know.
All of it, or all of it.
A lot, multiple data, but not detailed information. The smarter ones perhaps can say, oh, let me check. Let me take a look to Devo or to Splunk about what I have here. No, you should know without looking, because imagine that they are losing data. So another point is that if you take a look at the cybersecurity space, especially in CM, what all CMs in the world, no exception, do is almost the same. So you send the data, they store, index. After that, there is a query that takes the data to trigger an alert 15 minutes later. Why to put the alerts at the end of the chains instead to at the beginning? Because now with Onum, we are able to evaluate any number of alerts in real time before the data is stored. Or even more important, why do you need to store data that haven't triggered an alert, especially in cyber? Perhaps only for compliance or for threat hunting, but not in the most expensive storage. You can store in other places. So with all these ideas, but I found the company 3 years ago to build this pipeline technology with the scalability and performance in the core of our strategy. So, and our goal is not to reduce data. Our goal is to add value to the data in transit. What value? Because orchestration to send this data to this place in this format, this other data to this other place in this other format, doing any kind of ETL with the data in transit, do all the reductions that you can imagine, rows, columns, transformations, compressions, move from verbose format to formats that are more simple. But at the same time, trigger alert, evaluate alerts, create KPIs, evaluate rules for security, non-security, IT, OT, whatever you want to do with the data in transit. So with this idea, we built a platform, zero code, no code, everything through an amazing UI. We have been awarded several times for the UI UX, where you can orchestrate all the data. And when I say all the data, is amazing volume of data with that amazing low footprint. This week, we did a POC that we will win. with a huge vendor, collecting 45 million events per second with 8 machines. Doing transformations, doing ETL, we can evaluate alerts at that scale.
So if I was to rewind and go back in time, data flow largely between systems was either on or off, right? Like you had an API, a REST API, or some sort of, especially when you go back to like 1.0, 1.1, they didn't really have ways to look at the data. They just sent whatever was in the database to the new location. And then we got into like 1.2, and you could start specifying send this, not that. But we still weren't getting into the sophistication like you're describing, where it's like, but what is inside that container, right? Like I know what type of records are here because I picked them, but I don't know what data is being stored in those tables. I just know that I chose to say yes to this based on what's being asked of me.
And it's even more complex because when you have the data, you have access to the API, what is great, by the way. But after that, you have multiple tools, external systems, whatever, that need access to that data. So you will send the data 10 times or 20 times to each of those systems. What we are doing is that we connect the dots. Inside the pipeline, you are able to say, okay, this data I will pass, transform, this data I will send to the security operations center, this data I will enrich with threat intelligence feeds, this data I will aggregate and send to Grafana, this data I will evaluate an artificial intelligence model inside the pipeline. So we are all dots without sending the data 20 times. We connect all platforms.
And you're doing it before the data moves, right? You're saying I've identified what needs to go where before we actually send it.
Exactly. And do the transformation, the enrichment, the alerting, the aggregations, whatever, inside the
transformation is half the problem, right? We end up having to build tables or tools to create transformation for those systems that are like, oh yeah, we don't accept that format. And you're like, okay, crap, now I got to build another format.
We do any kind of transformation with the data inside the pipeline through the UI UX in seconds, not minutes, not hours, seconds. But it's very impressive at any scale. So the other day, this POC that we are very happy with that, we did a transformation at 45 million events per second. Even doing serialization with protobuf that is crazy expensive in terms of computation, for us is not a problem. So we send the data to Elastic in this format, to Splunk in this other format, to Snowflake in this other format. But before sending this information, we are evaluating the alerts for cybersecurity. For example, we implemented Sigma rules. We have more than 5,000 rules, security rules, that you can activate with a few clicks over your data.
So obviously there's a million different Swiss Army knife ways to use this because we're talking about data in transit, data transformation, knowing where the data goes, being able to prevent data from going before we're ready for it to be sent. While at the same time, in the for-profit world, I can see like the two things, kind of what you mentioned, is knowing what I'm sending so I know the value that goes with it before I say yes to just allowing my data to be ingested. But the second one, the one that that's on the tip of everyone's tongue right now is, where is my data that's sensitive or based on data types, and how is that being protected? And then taking it one step further, that's the consumer side of it, really, is the what to do when you're looking at threat intelligence feeds and trying to ingest those into your different SIM tools. Your MDMs are spitting out gibberish to be able to take that information, transform it into something that's readable and meaningful, and then have it spit out the appropriate alerts and dashboards that need to be viewed by eyes on glass. That's an industry game changer. That's not, we're not talking about like, hey, 3 vendors got together and said, hey, look, we can work together and share threat intelligence feeds. This is way beyond that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a game changer. So now, tactically talking, we are focused in data production, cybersecurity, because it's long-hanging fruit. But what we are doing now is work in use cases that have nothing related to cybersecurity, telcos, IT, whatever. In some cases, doing transformation. In some cases, we are evaluating rules and alerts. So multiple things. So this is way beyond a technology just for cyber. So we want to be, we see ourselves in the future as a real-time analytic platform. that don't substitute the Snowflake or Elastic in the world. No, because there is some analytics that you need to do with the data at rest. And some others you can evaluate in real time. For example, the latency when we compute the data is milliseconds or microseconds. Do you want to wait 15 minutes to trigger an alert if you can have the alert in 1 second, in less than 1 second? Nobody. But the question is...
So Akamai was to the internet in the early 2000s. You are to data flows and data transformation in 2025.
Mm-hmm. But Akamai is a perfect example. Perfect example. Akamai generates, I think that is about 15 petabytes of data per day.
Sure.
When the customer receives the data, they have multiple fields that they don't care about that. They even don't know what that means. Why to pay for that? What's the value that you can extract for that data?
Right.
Why are you storing this information in your Splunk or Snowflake or whatever? It doesn't make sense. Second, you really need to store the data. My vision, Chris, is that in some time, not far away, we won't be able just to store the data that we are generating. But the point is, but we need to, no, we divide the data in 4 categories. The data that you know that you will need in the future for compliance, threat hunting, I don't know. You know.
But go the other way. Go to the dark path a little bit. Think about like the threat actors. They go and scrape the AT&T database and they dump it on the dark web. And those that do due diligence on the threat actor side, they go and they parse out and they find, okay, I found this many records that actually are complete, have all this information, and they're more than just credentials, and they actually contain other information. How do you, for lack of a better word, how do you prevent this from getting into the wrong hands? Because man, ingesting data like that suddenly becomes, I know the exact value of every piece of data that I'm putting out there to be sold.
But nothing is impossible in this world, of course. Nothing.
Right, of course.
Of course, but I came from, my background is cybersecurity my whole career. But let me tell you something. Extract the data from a platform like that, where we don't store a single piece of data, is 1,000 or million of times more complex than extract the data from a platform where the data resides at rest. Because the data is stored and always there and always available. So if you have access to Splunk, you have access to this company data for the last 12 months or 2 years or whatever.
Sure.
So in our case, this doesn't exist. Everything is encrypted on transit. So even if you break the system, imagine that we have, you can imagine all the audits or everything. If there is a single modification of a pipeline, we are aware of that. So even in the worst case, you can have access to some data encrypted in a few seconds, milliseconds. But when you compare that with the data at rest, the complexity is huge. The data is not encrypted because the query engine is able to extract, and you have the data stored for years. So this is absolutely more secure than the current approach.
So I guess you didn't say this earlier. You're saying that if I'm using Onum in my solution stack, my data at rest and in transit's both encrypted. So somebody getting access to my data, they would have to have keys to decrypt it.
Depending with the data at rest, I have no clue. Depends on you.
Sure, unless I'm, yeah.
Exactly. So I can talk about the data in transit. So with the data is through Onum, every piece of data in every single moment in the life cycle of the data is encrypted. So nothing is clear under at any moment. So even if you have access to all of our systems, you won't be able to see anything. Zero.
So you're also reducing the I would call it the SSO tax in some respects, because now you're allowing data that maybe wasn't secured well, or the programming was done more of like, get this out there and get it live, to now, even with that in place, you're still taking data from even those environments and still getting encrypted. So even though there's the possibility of coming at that data from the front end, we know that the probability in many cases is they're scraping data through the man-in-the-middle attack, and the data is already flowing through an encrypted channel. So we've reduced that footprint substantially as well.
Absolutely. And what about the masking or anonymization of the data? That's something that we do continuously. So the data, you are integrating the data from the transaction in Splunk or Snowflake, and the data will be stored there in clear. What the customer are doing with us is that they send to us, and part of the transformation is, okay, for this data, I will create a hash. This data, I will hide directly. this data I will mask in this specific way. This data I will create a lookup, or this data.
Or this data, I don't even need it all, so I've dropped it, so it doesn't exist anymore in that pipeline.
Exactly. And not, and even more important, won't exist in the destination platform.
Well, that reminds me of like the ways in which healthcare through HL7 and some of the other ways they wanted to create, the master database. And 20 years later, it's still not a very big database because you have lots of formatting issues with different hospital systems using different schemas. But thinking about what most cases they want to do is when it comes to going back to like the pharmaceutical companies and research, they just need the data. They don't need to know it was attached to Chris Johnson. They just need to know what the markers were. So then
they just need to know that Chris Johnson in this hospital is this hash and this hospital, other hospital is this the same hash. Just
right.
put the information together. Point number one. Point number two, that perfect example. So because the ETL process for us with the data in transit is amazing, we have customers that they have large companies that they have on their infrastructure. They have CrowdStrike, they have SentinelOne, they have Watchword. What they are doing with us is create the ETL to have a single table, single format with the EDR data, regardless the source of the data. So now they can change the number of agents of computers from this EDR to this other EDR, and nothing changed. The alerts, the dashboard, everything continue being the same.
Sure.
Before that, you need to adapt and have 3 versions of the alerts, 3 versions of the dashboard, 3 versions of the analytics. Doesn't exist with us. So it's just understand that why doesn't make sense for us to tie how you analyze the data with the shape of the data instead to the meaning of the data, the content.
I mean, you flipped APIs on their head. You flipped how we store data on its head. You've given the ability for data to have value added to it that maybe wasn't considered to have value at all because now I can format it and use it in such a way that's meaningful. What's your timeline for sort of being broadly available?
Now we are. The question is that we are just 1 year in the market, and we have been growing as crazy in business. Now we have difficult to believe opportunities in front of us.
Sure.
With vendors. But we are generally available. We have BBVA, Santander, Telefonica, Deloitte, CaixaBank, World Bank as customer of us, T-System, customers in Latin America, Mexico, Colombia, Mexico, Spain, US, Italia. So Italy. So we are growing a lot and expanding that vision that is very different than our competitors. It's very different.
Good. So, but one of the, spending time on your website, you talk a lot about the platform, the features, the data, and making meaningful data. But on the surface, it doesn't talk about all the things that you and I have been talking about, which are things that the industry at large is desperate for the transformation of. And that's I'm just curious if you guys have plans to sort of market in different formats.
That's the reason when we are looking for a VP of marketing. If you know someone, we are hiring. So yeah. So we are not proud of our marketing strategy messaging at all. So now we are changing that clearly, and just to show our value in an absolutely different way, and move from a feature product marketing to talking more about the benefits, the use cases, and how we are disrupting the market.
Yeah, so on the integration side, I mean, I know you list some on your website, but the reality is you don't really care. You can integrate with just about anything.
We don't care. We don't care. That's
right.
An amazing point. We don't care. So we should have all protocols to collect data and all APIs. After that, what's inside on the other side, that's up to the customer. We don't care.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you've made the lift. I mean, just curious about how you guys would price something like this, because you've made the lift for a vendor that makes a SaaS-based platform product or web application. You've reduced their development workload because in many cases, if they don't have integrations with other platforms or tools, they become an island and no one cares to use their product because they need it to communicate and integrate with other platforms.
Yeah. Let me tell you something about a project that we are doing now. I think that perhaps at the end of this week, Friday or Monday, we will have something to show. That is a company that they have 20 million of cell phones, creating metrics about quality of service, security, whatever, worldwide. They will change completely the way that they will collect the data. They will send all the data to us. We will trigger the alerts. They will start adding more enrichment, more value proposition on top of that data, and with them to the current platform to do the dashboarding, all this stuff. But imagine 20 million of devices worldwide distributed. It's an amazing test just to test what's going on in security, in IT, quality of services, whatever. So we will do that inside us a few pipelines.
In the same vein, I think about, carriers and billing. So, maybe you have the 20 million or 50 million or however many, who, if you could just say, show me on the dashboard, who's more than 30 days past due on their cell phone bill? How do we, little things like that the software platforms themselves, unless the user has built the queries for it, you've made that available without having to do any real programming.
Yes, but this is the space of the analytic platform. So we don't want to store the data. So
no. Yeah, understood.
We are before the Splunk, the Elastic, the Snowflake, the Palantir, whatever. We are right before that. Because we don't want to become an analytic platform with the data at rest. We want to pre-process the data, to add value to the data right before. If you after
but you're ensuring that the data is clean when I go to query that data. And I think that's, having spent time in the development space, and especially getting into more of like your more advanced using things like Excel workbooks and that kind of thing, and just seeing how just having a few fields that have null data can throw a wrench in your entire formula. You're eliminating a lot of that noise.
All the noise. And then you know what? The first name that we defined for the company was signal it, because we want to play with the concept to extract the signal from the noise. After that, because we don't have a .com domain, so we found Onum that we like it. But the extract the signal from the noise in the data that we are generating, that's the key of this company.
I see. Yeah. It reminds me of the movie, totally drawing a blank, but he sits in the over the garage with his radio trying to figure out if there's people or aliens out there, and he keeps getting shot down, but this little kid comes over to help him, and he discovers later on that he is the alien.
Exactly. So extract the signal is key. It's key. And nowadays that we have more and more data in verbose format that is difficult to analyze, difficult formats is even more important.
Yeah, the movie was The Arrival.
The Arrival, yes. Oh, amazing film, amazing movie.
Yeah, trying to find the signal through the noise, right? He's constantly fiddling with those dials, and no one believes him. Everybody thinks he's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. The Arrival.
Wow.
Cool.
Anything else you want to leave? Since we've been recording this whole time, we can turn this into we can definitely turn this into the episode.
No, I don't think so. Let me try to find a recorder demo that I will send to you, because perhaps can open mine a little bit. And
that would be great.
Yeah, I think that I have something. I will let me check, and I will send to you or myself or our colleague.